August 8th, 2019, 6:30 p.m., and this is Public Hospital District Number 4, King County Board of Commissioners regular meeting. And I call this to order. Would you stand for flag salute, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have a roll call, please?
President Norris.
Here.
Vice President Barron.
Here.
Secretary Spikers.
Here.
Commissioner Pollard.
Here.
Commissioner Carter.
Here. Do I hear an approval, a motion for approval of the agenda?
Before we approve, may I add to the agenda under other? I don't see other here.
I don't see another.
Madam Vice
I'd like
President, we've
to-
removed other under our rules of procedure. You may recall you were on the committee.
Okay, yeah,
but we
but
didn't
last
feel other
time we
wasn't
had
appropriate.
other.
Good of the
So-
order.
Good of the order,
Same thing.
Commissioner.
You
Dunn.
could put it under good of the order, or you could put it under new business if you have a new item for the
Yes,
agenda.
under new business, to discuss the Snoqualmie Valley Hospital Foundation, that I think that should be resurrected or revived again. So I'd like that discussion to go under new business.
Alrighty. Do we need a motion for that?
I think she made the motion, I'll second.
Yeah, she's
Okay.
moved that you amend the agenda with that new topic. It's been seconded by Commissioner Spikers.
When you have a second, is there any discussion?
I would suggest that we do still have a foundation. And what I would suggest is that we put it on the agenda of a future meeting and have the person who's acting chair of the foundation come and give us
There's
a
no
report.
one now that is still living, except for one, is a member. But the chair, who was the chief of police, doesn't live in the community anymore.
So
So
I-
it's really dead right now.
I
So
don't
we
know.
need to resurrect it and start the whole.
Okay, so we
So-
have,
so-
we have a first, we have a second, we're having a little bit of discussion, correct? Is there anybody else that wants to make any other comments?
Well, I believe that there was a question or clarification as to the agenda item. I think that's been responded to, so it's appropriate to vote. And then when we do get to that item, Commissioner Pollard can raise on that, and Vice President Harris can identify. I think she just wants it on for discussion purpose. She's not asking for action.
I think so. Okay, then, I have a second. All those in favor of adding it to the agenda as a discussion?
I think Kate Spikers seconded that.
Yes, he did. So I'm saying all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Then it passes. Okay, so I've got it down as new business number 3. Alrighty, next, communications. The only communication I have, and I would suggest if members are available on August 12th, that the Snoqualmie Valley Community Network is having their Key Leader Summit. I'm not sure where it is. Usually it's in the old Seventh-day Adventist Church. Yeah, the Alliance Church, right off Fall City. And it's a good time to mingle and talk with other community organizations. The police are often there, social workers are often there, principals, counselors, a lot of people that are really concerned about youth mostly. And usually there's a speaker and then breakout sessions. where
This is
people-
August 12th.
This is August 12th.
That's
Yeah,
next
this is
week.
when they're gonna reveal their community needs assessment.
Yes, that is true.
It starts at 8:30 in the morning for breakfast.
Yes.
Goes to noon.
Until we-
Well, everybody knows. That makes me feel good. What do you want for breakfast? I'm bringing it. Oh, that's the truth. I supply breakfast.
Oh,
Okay.
steak and eggs.
Dr. Whitcomb, you're next on the communications.
Sorry, I'm thinking about breakfast. All right. Well, again, several bullet points to update you on. So July was a very strong month for us. We were quite busy. Our average daily census was 24.4 in a 25-bed facility. So strong work, and that was truly a combination of swing bed patients and acute patients. So we had quite a few acute days in there as well. In the month of July, we also had not only we had the highest ED volume of the year, so it exceeded the next highest month by 22. So really, really busy month in the emergency department. We received 3 thank you notes over the course of this last month. One of them is from Red, White, and Boom. So that's the Snoqualmie 4th of July celebrations. So we provide first aid services there. We got a thank you note from the Snoqualmie Valley Senior Center. We contributed to their fundraiser this year, and so a nice thank you note. And then also a thank you note from the Washington Poison Center. The Washington Poison Center operates as a nonprofit, and so we did make a donation to them because we use them a lot. It's a great resource of toxicologists that anytime we have somebody come into the emergency department that has had an ingestion, that we want to really not just have to go and look at literature, but talk to somebody who actually is expert in the field, and they make themselves available and they're completely funded through donation. So appreciation from them there. Tonight, later on in the agenda, we'll do a review of the different C-suite roles. Through a variety of channels, I've heard questions coming up and uncertain about what the different roles are. It's a great opportunity to introduce the new org chart as well. So we'll get to that later on in the agenda. We continue to focus on community engagement and just looking for opportunities to be out and making increased contacts in the community. The medical committee report will include some of those. I just wanted to highlight the Issaquah Sports Combine that we participated in. We were at the Pineapple Life Festival. We had our dietitians there, and they were incredibly popular because they were one of the few tents on display that had food, and they had healthy pumpkin brownies, and they had chia seed raspberry jelly. So we handed out the recipes, as well as on the back of the recipes was all of the services that are offered by the hospital. So again, you can envision Costco, everybody congregates around the food carts, and that's their tent was very popular. Oh, and they had infused water, so that was another popular fruit infused water. And then where am I? The Snow Valley Chamber Golf event. We sponsored a hole, which means that we had one of our staff members standing at the hole, having conversations with everybody as they came through, doing some entertainment as well. But again, very well received. Lots of
What was that by chance?
Heidi did that, our med search manager.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of fun. One of the, you have games for them to play, and this is all fun. She also had an award that if on your first putt, you made it into the hole. Yeah. She had a certificate that you got a free colonoscopy and a viewing party for 4. So most people were more interested in having their picture taken with the certificate than anything else. There was a real
Can you combine that with a colonoscopy?
Yes.
That's
what it was for. So everybody had a lot of fun with that and on. We continue to just very methodically spend time with attentiveness, looking for opportunities to not only increase revenue, but also decrease expenses. And so again, in the methodical approach, we've got the reference lab that launched to the outlying clinics. It's already exceeding expectations. We're just a month into that. And then other focus areas around expenses are looking at supplies, looking at food service, looking at transportation costs, and our send-out labs. And again, then we'll move on to once we've worked our way through these, we'll move on to the next set of things to look at. Not finding a lot, but again, we want to be intentional and methodical there. We participate in several value-based contracts, and we do that through EHN, through Eastside Health Network. And so one of the value-based contracts that we participate in is with Cigna. And so there was a recent incentive payout. And so EHN was very thrilled. This is the first payout in 2 years, and so at only the 2-year mark, many clinically integrated networks are in their 3rd, 4th, or 5th year before they receive any benefits, and in the second year, EHM is already getting a payout for incentive. And so we were a participant, so we received a $2,200 check, and it doesn't sound huge, but it is atop the care that we were already paid to provide care to these patients, and atop of that, we received $2,200 for performance in a series of measures, quality measures, as well as decreasing the cost of care. And so that was really lots of applause for our providers, and it was our clinic providers and our ED providers. That's where the measurement applies.
I think that's awesome. Doesn't the board think that's absolutely
Absolutely.
awesome?
Saving,
Good job.
saving money for the taxpayers, right? Because less
Yeah.
insurance
All
costs
Yeah.
insurance companies.
and getting money back.
Money back.
Because of quality
Right.
of care.
Exactly.
That's what it was supposed to be designed to do, so
That's
we're
right.
doing it.
That's right.
That's awesome.
And I'll just throw in one other little bit there, and that is our quality score was 100%. Yes. Super proud of that.
On a scale of what?
0 to 100.
120.
I've got that answer.
Yeah, she
Really
did.
fast. Oh, July 20th, we hosted another SAIL event, Staying Active and Independent for Life. So that was a master symposium event here on July 20th. So there were about 25 people in attendance, and that is folks from many senior center, senior gathering sites all around the Puget Sound area, but many of them right from our east side neighborhood. So it's a great exposure. We were simply the host site. The teaching was done by the SAIL masters. But it was a great opportunity for us, again, to showcase what it is we have on offer here. August 29th, we're hosting a celebration event for all of our staff who have advanced their education in the last year. We just paused and started thinking about the number of our staff who have gotten a degree, gotten a certificate, gone back to school in some way, and really wanted an opportunity to draw attention to them because many of them have done it very much under the radar. So we're going to host a celebration for them, a cupcake social, but an opportunity for them to come in and be honored, but it's also an opportunity to encourage others to do the same thing. So this event is a come and go kind of an open house concept, and we will also have some colleges and education institutions here as well. And so anybody who's interested in learning more about what's out there, how they can do it, and all of these institutions are aimed at working students. So they'll be here as well in a different section if somebody wants to. And then just to close out, the work study that's coming up in two weeks, a couple of weeks later in the month, that's going to be the quarterly quality presentation there. And then we'll continue a discussion about the post-transaction budget and the actual dollars that we think should go into the trust account. So just continuing that conversation that we already had earlier.
Okay. Any questions for Dr. Woodcock?
Just a comment, thank you for doing the outreach, with our community because.
We've been remiss.
Commissioner Fuller, did you want to say something?
With regards to the Cigna event, how many institutions did that involve besides Overlake and Evergreen, presumably, since they're Eastside Health Network?
The Eastside Health Network is the collection of 1,300 physicians on the east side. And so it's any of those participants who met their quality measures.
Okay, so it's not the facilities, it's the network of providers.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And the way that it's seen, one is a tax ID number. So there may be one physician in an office under a tax ID number, and it may be, we also are one with multiple physicians under our tax ID numbers. So that's how it's distributed, is by those units
We got 100%, right?
We got 100%.
And how did that compare generally with the other participants? How did it range?
None of them were better.
You are quick.
Sorry, I don't know what the distribution was. I know how he scored.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. McDuff? And moving along, our general counsel, Skip Hauser, is going to
Robert.
share something with us from Robert.
Of course, and good evening.
Good
We've
evening.
been covering lots of topics, and it's getting harder and harder for me to find topics, particularly those that might be of some interest. But I realize that even though we've been talking about the different types of motions and being out of order and all those types of things, we never talked about how to make a motion, how to frame a motion. And so this evening I'm going to share with you Chapter 5, Section 10 of Robert's Rules. It's called the framing of main motions, wording of a main motion. Now you understand what motion is? If you look up the definition of motion, it's the action or process of moving or being moved. So when you have a motion, you're asking to move something along. That's the reason. So this is a statement of an action taken by an assembly. It should therefore be worded in 3 ways. 1, concise. Do not be verbose. 2, unambiguous. Do not create ambiguity. And 3, complete form appropriate to such a purpose. I have no idea what that means. It cannot employ language that is not allowed in debate. A member making the motion embodying something that has just been said by the chair or another member in informal consultation during the meeting should avoid statements such as, "so I move" or "I so move." That happens in almost every organization I go. The chair will say, "Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the minutes?" Yeah, and then somebody will say, "I so move." That's an improper motion. You'd have a motion that says, "I so move." What would the motion be? How would you vote on the motion, "I so move"? Or people will just say, "so moved." And yet, informally, most organizations accept that as the motion. They adopt it and they move on. You should not do that. I've noticed this board does not typically do that. You are very good about making specific motions. So you should avoid those statements and you should recite the complete motion that you want to offer. A motion to reaffirm is out of order. Position previously taken by adopting a motion or resolutions are not in order. Don't say, "I move to reaffirm the prior motion." That would be out of order. It's already been moved, it's already been approved. And it does then conflict with the rules for motions to amend something that was previously adopted, because you could move to amend it, or you could move to table it or do other things. A motion whose only effect is to propose that an assembly refrain from doing something should not be offered. It should be out of order as well. The same result can be accomplished by offering no motion at all. If it is incorrect, for example, to move that no response be made, for instance, you get a letter. I move that no response be made to the letter. That would be an improper motion. You're not going to make a response unless you have a motion that says what? You make a response. Exactly. So most of this stuff that Robert's Rules of Order thought about, remember, back in the 1850s or so, was common sense. But a lot of folks didn't have a whole lot of that. Benjamin Franklin had, in fact, written, "How common is sense?" Not very. So people were trying to figure this out. And finally, this last paragraph does talk about it's preferable to avoid a motion containing a negative statement. So instead of saying things like, "I make a motion to be not in favor of the proposed public bond issue," you should make your motion to say, "I move that we oppose it." And in fact, you may be aware the Public Disclosure Commission many years ago says public bodies now can pass resolutions to support different bodies, others. So if you had a resolution that was occurring in the county, you wanted to support that, you'd move to support that. You would not move, "I vote we not support it." So, questions, answers? Now you know how to make a motion.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Okay, do I hear a motion for approval of the minutes? In fact, can I hear a motion for both 1 and 2 under consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the minutes and the consent agenda, including the position credentialing.
I second. Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There's no opposition, so that passes. Okay, committee reports. Finance Committee is first.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Spikers, you have the floor.
All right, well, it's kind of an odd month because we were supposed to lose money and we ended up making money.
Yes.
Resulting in
And there are
shell game.
reasons.
It's like a shell game.
I just wanted to have that introduction to get your attention. So anyway, well, we've been, if you recall, and I want to make sure that you all remember that when we do this contractual adjustments and things, we're always trying to find out what the payment scheme is going to be. And we were very conservative because that's what I want. I did not want to end up owing $500,000 by May 1st, you know, after we figured it out. And so we went back and we actually got a very concise look at it. I think, wasn't Overlake doing it?
Overlay did a
Yeah.
cost report through
Did a cost
May and then gave us access to it.
And they did an actual cost report, not something
Not
that was
pretend.
not potential report. And they had a very accurate one, and we were ahead by about 119,000. So, rather than being in the hole, approximately 200,000, we're only in the hole. And I'm not saying we're in the hole, I'm just saying at
We're
this
net loss.
time in the budget,
Yeah.
we're at a negative 48,000. And I think there's going to be I think we're going to end up in a better situation here in the next couple of months. You'll see that we're getting $38,000 credit from a billing company, which will reduce our purchase services, which we had a 18%, I'm not going to say overrun, but we were over budget by 18% last month. And that should reduce
I don't know.
the purchase services to be more on budget. We should be a little closer anyway. We had an error in numbers and accounting and the supplies. That's why we're up 15% for the month. This happened last month too, didn't it?
It's an error.
It's
yeah,
been an ongoing
It's a
error.
system problem in our inventory
So
accounting systems. that I'm
Jim and Steve are trying to find out where it is.
we-
It's not like we lost money anywhere, it's some kind of error in the account.
Karen has helped me and we are down to the bottom of this and we'll make a correcting entry. It's next month. Thank you, Karen.
And we will have, just to let you know, we had to comply with code requirements. Probably why I brought that thing about regulatory codes and whatnot for our previous meeting. And we will have to come up with between 10 and 15,000 to comply with the code requirements of the city. Remember, they sat on it for about 2 years and then finally said, oh, you're out of code.
Does this have
By
to
the
do with
way.
the occupancy permit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To get an
That's what I thought.
occupancy permit. I think they sat at more like 2.5 years. So, the good news is Ben Arroyo looked back at the agreement. Steve said, hey, you know, don't you guys have to do some of this stuff work? Isn't it in the agreement? Didn't use a lawyer, talked it up. And they said, yeah, that's right, we will. So they're going to draft the design and drawing, which probably be at least that or more.
Yeah,
That's my guess.
They're all resurveying the place.
Yeah, so the survey's probably about 10 grand, and then the drawings are probably another 20 or 30. That's probably my guess. So that's good. Have I given you good things so far, everyone? Okay, we have, one thing I question, if you go to the compliance chart, with days in cash on hand, we've had as much as 95 days cash on hand. And you're probably wondering,
I don't have one.
you don't have one?
No.
Okay, well then I'll
It's
report
not
you.
in the
We
back.
have to
Yeah, it's not in the
have
back.
60 days cash on hand a debt service coverage of 1.2, and reserve funds of $3,678,000.
It's in,
It's right
excuse
here.
me, it's in
Okay,
the.
okay, there you go.
In one.
And then, so we're really low on cash in hand. Well, there's a reason.
Yeah.
Last year, we did provide for it in our contractual adjustments. So we kind of kept the money in the bank until we had to pay. So we're now paying. So there was over 2 million, 2.2 million, something like that.
Yeah, when you combine the two payments, it comes
Yeah.
about $2.
So that's why the cash on hand depleted us of cash, but that will be going up, and by the end of the year, we're thinking it'll be around the 80s again.
And then it was 70 to 80.
Yeah.
Because right now it's just.
So we're still in compliance, that's not an issue, I'm just letting you know that that's the variance for right now.
Well, no, compliance is measured once after your audited financial statements, so compliance is measured with the end of the year.
Oh, okay, so then we'll be in much better, we
No.
don't have to worry. So. Okay. And then, apparently, we're supposed to receive $96,000 dividend from workman's comp claims through the Washington Hospital Services Trust. You recall that we're part of this trust through the collaborative, about 18 hospitals that we joined with. And so, we did that because we're not big enough to be a self-insured hospital. And I could get into all of that, but anyway, I'm not, because I don't think you follow me. It's not important, I'll just say that. I think at this point, I'm just going to, don't know if I have any other notes here. Those are the main things I want to talk. We're doing pretty well. I mean, we had a little bit below our census budget, but all in all, we did pretty well for the bottom line, which means that we're looking at costs, we're looking at our outpatient procedures. I think we're up there pretty good this year. We're up well over what we predicted on 3 or 4 different places. Our census is a little bit above budget, and I would say it's going to be a little bit more now after July. This is the June budget. Emergency, we're going to be a little bit above budget, which is good. Outpatient rehab is well above budget. Clinics, a little bit above. The imaging above budget. Endo will probably become towards budget, or we'll get there, or we'll be above by the end of the year, my guess. Those procedures usually take place in the fall. So, with that, the accounts receivable.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that is higher. And this is what's been happening in the last, probably, I don't know, in the last 6 months. I think it's been up and down mostly, but it's been up around 60 since last December. And we've come into quite a bit of Medicare Advantage billings, and they don't pay quickly. They pay very slowly. And so we are considering potentially billing twice a month, then looking at all the extra costs of personnel to do this. I don't know if it's really something that we'll end up doing, because it may be cost preventative for us to do that. So we will, so that, I hope will go down a little bit. We've been looking at all of the clinics are billing good, the outpatient services are high, but they've always been high, the turnaround. And so we're looking at, I don't know what we're gonna be able to do to reduce it by much. Maybe we get it down to 55 again by the end of the year, I don't know. So with that Medicaid, because we're taking on more and more Medicare Advantage plans, that will necessarily make us, make our accounts receivable go up a few every month. So Anyway, any questions at all?
Where do you get this number, David? Where do you get the comparison? Is this a monthly number here that
Okay, I'll
business
look at
units,
your,
accounts receivable days?
yeah, this is a month, yeah, for each, the hospital
Oh, yeah.
outpatient, 68, which
So
is
what
usually
that
high.
like? Yeah, what
It's
is,
like-
what was it like last month for this? So is this a monthly?
Yeah, this
Rate?
is our, this is this month's AR days.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
Our combined is on this chart here
Oh,
at
okay.
59.4.
Yeah, is that it right there?
Yeah, 59% or 59.
59 days.
It should be days.
59%.
Should be days.
Days.
Okay, so.
And the clinics are below 50, inpatient swing bed is below 50, clinic is at, 36 days, so just over a month, and then the outpatient is higher. And you can see the Medicare days, when we have high Medicare,
Yeah.
and high Medicaid, Medicare Advantage. You see that? That's one of the highest we've ever had, Medicare.
Yeah,
Yes,
they
very
pay us well, but they pay us slow.
Yeah,
So-
so that's,
What's
that's.
the plan? I noticed that you're working on a plan to decrease
Yeah,
our
yeah.
days.
Well,
Yes.
that's what
Especially
the-
Medicare.
that's what I was trying to say. We're gonna see if it really is plausible to bill out twice a month, or,
Yeah, you mentioned.
because it does take personnel and time and expense, so.
We're looking at our procedures to say, well, what can we do to, you're not gonna make it drop down to 30, but to get that number down. And our billing manager, doing most of the work.
We do have an outside collection agency, don't we?
We
That
have
utilize?
a firm that does billing for the hospital, we outsource that.
HRG,
HRG, we do the billing for the clinics in-house, and we have a revenue cycle director, billing manager that runs that department and manages HRG.
And they communicate.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
Because there were some issues in the past that the
In
patient
the
family was
years
not-
ago past, there were issues,
Yeah.
and our billing manager has done a very good job in improving the relationship, communication, and the management of that relationship.
yeah,
But there was one recently that was resolved, but because
Oh, yeah,
this
there are
person
always,
did not
there are
know
always
about it.
individual items that happen, but I mean, just in the aggregate, we've
Yeah.
been very.
Okay.
we were well over 100 days accounts receivable at one time,
I
about a
have
few
it.
years back.
Oh, a few years back.
And at that time, there was a problem with HRG, and we were,
And, well, we just implemented a new AMR system, and we had difficulty billing.
and so we ended up, if I recall, they made some concessions, I do remember that,
Mhm.
financial.
Well, I
concessions.
prefer to say they're working better with us.
Yeah.
So, anyway, yeah.
And we're supposed to get like some money back from them, aren't we?
Yeah, we're getting credit of about 38,000.
Yeah, that's what it is, right, so. And we have to remind them of.
I had
Anyway,
Are there any other questions for Commissioner Spikers?
oh,
Emma?
if not, I have,
Fine,
Warrants?
thank you.
I have the warrants.
Just ready for the
This
warrants,
one's
okay.
good. Yeah, reminded.
I just gotta find it in my file.
Here, here.
So,
This
oh,
one.
Okay. I make a motion to approve the warrants as, we do have a lot this month. Accounts payable warrants of $2,883,374.51. Payroll, clinic payroll taxes, auto deposits, and matching, clinic and hospital matching plans of another 1.4 some million, for, I think, an all-time high of $4,315,455.15. I believe this is not a 3 payroll month, is it? Why is it
There's
so
five,
high?
is that 5 weeks?
No, same. I'd have to look. I can't have to look.
Oh, 15 and 20.
He's looking for something to
There.
verify.
Confirm, compare,
Well, this is the one I received, so, yeah,
same. 1 million.
so,
Do
does
we
that
have-
sound right,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Dr. Wheatcroft?
Yeah, I'm looking
Okay.
For through
I
payroll.
just double check, I don't think that,
Yeah,
yeah.
the total number's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I make that motion at this time.
A second?
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of,
Roll call vote, please.
okay. All those in favor of accepting the warrants as they are listed here. Roll call. Commissioner Pollard, we'll start with you. You gonna say yea or nay?
I'm asking if there be a roll call vote. Are you calling me first?
Yes, I
That's
am.
unusual. Okay.
I am.
No.
No, okay. Jen?
Yes.
Commissioner Spiker?
Yes.
Commissioner, yeah, yes. The Heron, Commissioner Heron. Yeah, and I vote yes. So,
And I assume it passes.
yeah, yes, it does, it passes. Thank you. All right.
It is a two.
I thought
Okay. I didn't realize it, just for the record, it was it was just a two payroll month.
that- Okay. All right, so we're moving on to medical committee now. Commissioner Heron?
Okay, in the community, most of it, Dr. Whitcup had covered, but I'll go ahead and repeat them. Our hospital participated in a few health events here. The ZTAC 7-9, which we discussed in our last board, and the ISPA Sports Combined. And the prediction of those attendees, there were 5,000 participants. There was a tent and a main stage, and Snoqualmie Valley Hospital did a presentation on, what was that? Save the, stop the bleeding, yes. Okay, so, and then, of course, the Snow Valley Golf Tournament sponsor, we covered, Dr. Whitcup covered that. System-wide, our IT infrastructure upgrade went well, continuing to resolve few remaining residual functionality issues. The remote temperature monitoring for the refrigerators, the warmers, or deployment is in process now. In the past, it was done manually, so now it's going to be a remote temperature monitoring style. So now we need on the emergency department. We probably want to say a few bragging rights here. Our busiest day since moving into our hospital was 23. That's pretty large for a, so that's really good news. Infection preview. Currently, we're trialing a disposable isolation gowns that the goal is to better cover it, easier to correctly don it off and done it on and done it off. Consideration for disposal versus laundry costs, user reviews. That's still something that, have to be taken and decide whether a disposable one would be a much better. But the problem is on the laundry, the material, sometimes the fabric can be very sensitive to some people's skins, is that right?
That's mostly fit.
Mostly the fitted, that's
Mostly
right, the
fit
design,
issue.
it's the design issue. The trailing disposable sheets, that the goal is to move the fluid from impervious sheets so that it doesn't flow underneath. So there's 3 layers. So it's really interesting because it's hard to explain how it looks like because we don't have the material, the sample here. Considerations for disposal versus laundry costs, again, and staff and patient reviews, skin protection. That's what I was thinking. So maybe Dr. Rika can explain a little bit more, more descriptive about the disposable sheets. It's really something.
Yeah, so the issue is a laundered sheet isn't impervious, so if it gets wet, then it penetrates on down, and the mattress also becomes wet, and so now your mattress, it adds the challenge of cleaning the mattress because another patient will eventually lay in that mattress, even though you have the protective barriers. And so these new sheets that are coming out will not allow fluid to penetrate fluid through, they actually catch the fluid. And so kind of the same concept as a diaper. It'll absorb it there, but it doesn't allow the patient to stay wet. It traps it. And then the value add is that it is 3 layers of sheets. And so just like a tear-off notepad, the top one is in use, and then when that becomes saturated, you simply tear it off, just roll it under the patient, tear it off, and the next sheet is just laying right there. And so you don't have to bring the patient completely out of bed. The next one's ready. And then you go through 3 layers, and now you do have to ask the patient to come out of bed so that you can change. It's just marvelous, very
Yeah,
ingenious.
it's marvelous.
And it's
almost
very
like-
soft. But we're trialing it because you want to make sure that it doesn't bunch under patients, that it continues to have the same functionality as a traditional sheet.
Okay, yes. And then you pull out the first layer, that's when you remove it, yeah, that's what you, that is it.
Are these types of sheets being
Yeah.
used by overlay?
They're not, it is just coming onto the market. So these are brand new introductions, so we're just looking at some
I
samples.
would just think it'd be good if overlay's going to be involved in the future, that we coordinate with them and make sure that they're on board with using these types of sheets.
Until they actually are in charge of operations here, I think it's fine for us to continue to make the right decisions for our patients and our budget. But as you bring up, always looking at opportunities to align something, a decision that can't be undone or changed pretty quickly. But we're still more than a year before they ever are will make a decision about operations.
Okay. On the lab, the reference lab was launched successfully. Our next site comes online later this month. Significant growth anticipated early October once results interface live. We're exploring telemicrobiology. The goal is for faster turnaround time for culture results and decreased expense. Our DOH survey will be 821, but this is only for the lab. The rest will, it's an annual. We do have an annual, but this particular DOH survey will just be for specifically just for the lab. Sleep Medicine Center, physician consults started smoothly, consults. Sleep testing launch delayed due to staffing issues, now resolved. Again, the Rural Health Collaborative Grant was being awarded to the collaborative by the HRSA grant, which will fund a psychiatrist nurse practitioner for us over 2 years to provide not only local in-person care, but also deliver care in other WRHC facilities via telemedicine to demonstrate diabetes and hypertension treatment compliance, make sure it's improved when screen and treat for depression, anxiety via behavioral health therapists. So this fund that is awarded will pay for the nurse practitioner. So we don't have to pay for it, but we are the host hospital that will take the rest of the other collaborative to if there's any need in terms of, this culture that we need to improve our diabetes and hypertension treatment and others. Is that right? Did I miss anything else?
Nope.
Okay. And I guess that's it.
Is there any questions for Commissioner Herring? Commissioner Pollard?
What is meant by in-person care?
Local in-person care.
Now, are we talking about like home health care where we would go out?
Face-to-face
Face.
as opposed to through telemedicine
But that's in the hospital,
in the clinic.
in the clinic. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Then I guess we will move on to Facilities Committee. And that would be me. Facilities Committee met July 17th. It was rescheduled from June 24th. We have a punch list. I don't know if Steve wants to say anything about this. Steve and Scott have been handling that. Bids have been obtained on the punch list for a list of items that need to be done by the outside contractors. These are as-built and need to be in our possession and reviewed prior to scheduling any contractors. This has a lot to do with if I'm correct, with not getting our occupancy permit or our final inspection.
Yeah, it was due to us submitting the information to the city, and they kind of sat on it.
They sat on
And
it.
then
They did.
kicked it back a few months ago, and been working on getting the required documentation to them. And David mentioned we contacted them, who was
Yes.
funding that documentation, because they realized they were supposed to do it in the first place.
Yeah, it wasn't our fault, so we don't have to pay for it. Up next is King County Search and Rescue. They are still in the process of finalizing with King County the permits needed for some changes on the site, as well as the issue of water rights. The district is not involved in any of this or any of the responsibilities. So as long as they're on that piece of property, they're taking care of that. Making the hospital a community gathering place, I think you'll see in the back of the report that some things going on. I guess it's not on this one.
No, we
Yeah,
don't.
we don't.
That's okay.
You do have though, it has no handout is given, as there are only two nets. Snoqualmie Rotary on the third Thursday and CarePoint Clinic Monthly Leadership Team on the second Tuesday. And we also, I just want to take a look at this before I move on. Okay. New business, transition of executive staff support for facilities. Karen Denton is now going to be COO and CNO, and she will now be the primary liaison for Facilities Committee at the executive level. They had a regional disaster readiness exercise. The district participated in a Western Washington-wide disaster readiness exercise, which involved a scenario of a bomb threat resulting in the need to evacuate and absorbing those patients being evacuated. Our part in it, our part was to take as many patients as possible being evacuated from another hospital who was designated in the exercise to be a site of the bomb threat. We learned we would have been able to accept approximately 20 patients. Panorama Housing, external triage. An external triage event occurred a few weeks ago, and a gas line was damaged while digging on the adjacent property during construction. You could smell the gas inside a little bit, but it wasn't, nothing was serious. Several hours of repairs were completed, and the dietary department was affected in that they were unable to prepare any hot food that day, so people had cold food. Panorama Housing Project update, the foundations have been poured and most of the road work has been completed. They are now starting framing, and the contractor will continue to use the hospital service road for access to the construction site. Contractor is easy to work with and very accommodating and accountable for maintenance on the service road. Echo Glen did an external triage event. Does anybody know about Echo Glen? Okay, that's right down the road here from us. And it's for youth, delinquent youth. Night on the Dark Trail, that will not be happening, I don't believe, in October. The director of the event has resigned, and operations have been suspended, and there will be no event this year, and I don't know what's going to happen in the future. And Dark Trail appears to be interested in holding an annual event on the East Campus property in the future years. Phase 3 of traffic study. 3 phases of the traffic study done by the City of Snoqualmie has now been completed, with Phase 3 having just been received. Phase 1 was completed December 2015, and Phase 2 was completed August 2017. Copies of the summaries of all 3 phases were provided to the committee. The purpose of the 3-phase study was to identify if and when traffic levels at intersection Southeast 99th Street and Snoqualmie Parkway are severe enough to warrant mandatory installation of traffic signal. The study has concluded that the traffic levels do not exceed the criteria to require the district to install a signal or other traffic control options. Steve,
Huh?
do you know about this traffic study? Do you know, did the city do it? Did they hire somebody to do
The
it?
city hired a contractor. We read it.
And-
Gave me an appreciation for the complication of traffic studies. And as I remember, the conclusion was there wasn't enough activity, and it's bad activity they measure, to do a change at the intersection.
At this, ours?
Yeah.
I think, but I think we mentioned that one of the council members had mentioned they would consider maybe a mini roundabout.
Yeah, I can tell you, we
But
drove
I
by
mean,
this last week, and there was an accident right here at our intersection.
So the report didn't say that it wasn't a problem. They did not
Yeah.
say that at all. It was
Yeah.
very clear. And they said it is a problematic intersection.
Right.
The issue is it did not rise to
It's
the
not easy.
criteria necessary to mandate that we install, that we
Yeah.
incur the expense of installing a traffic light. So that's all the traffic study was for. So there is conversation about possibly putting a roundabout in
Yeah.
at some point in time, especially as part of the whole I-90
Yeah.
interchange. If that occurs, it won't happen at the end of 99, it will happen further up
Further
the
up,
hill.
yeah.
So it'll happen straight out from where the emergency room entrance is, straight
Yeah.
out through there,
Yeah.
in the middle of the property.
Light on the monument sign, an additional modification was made and removed the bright light on the monument sign seen on the southbound corner of 99 and Snoqualmie Parkway. And then we adjourn. Monday, August 26, 2019, 8 a.m. will be our next meeting.
David, could I tag on to something you said in the finance? You referenced the high outflow of cash warrants. We paid our Medicare cost report payment in that month, and that's why the cash, the disbursements are higher.
Oh, okay, that would make sense then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that, but I wanted to look up to
Yeah.
make sure I didn't lie. That's why.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
so that, yeah, that totally makes sense. Okay.
Okay, so we've gone through facilities committee. Do we have any old business?
About questions on?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I
About
don't understand
facilities?
this sentence here, item 2, at the bottom of the page under new business. It says, "We learned we would have been able to accept approximately 20 patients."
Oh, we
Oh, you mean,
ran a
like-
drill.
The
We-
page
And-
in the
And,
back.
and we would have been able to accept 20 patients because of our capacity if there were a catastrophe somewhere.
Yes.
And that's what we passed along to those who might say, transfer people.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question, making it clear. Okay, no old business, new business. New business, I'm going to start the new business. I have suggested to Dr. Whitcomb, and we need input from the board, that we have a half-day, possibly day retreat to, just to help us have more time to really discuss the affiliation and the process and what's going to happen. So we all are comfortable with what we're doing and the decisions that we need to make. So I'm placing that before you. We have some dates, and I think we're just talking half-day, right? Yeah, variety of times and some half-dates. So I will forward these down. And you'll note that at the bottom it says, no, she's got the work study days already in here.
Because they're in case the decision was going to leverage the work study, just extending it a bit and letting that become retreat.
Okay, so that's an option.
So there'll be 2 half-days, one in September and one in October?
No,
Or just-
we're just gonna do one. We're
Oh,
not
okay,
doing
just
2.
one.
But we need to pick what we want. And
I
also,
see.
like she said, we could extend if we want to make a larger work study, if we want. When we're going over the affiliation, if we want to have a longer work study, then we can do that. That's why the days are different days. Mostly Wednesdays, but one Tuesday.
Should we align this with a deliverable, like when we have the agreement to review? or something like that, rather than just calendar, arbitrarily choosing a date?
I don't know how the process is going. I guess for me, and I was the one that brought it up, is I just wasn't sure that we all were real comfortable with what it meant and what the implications for us were. And that it would give us an opportunity to talk to one another and see what is really important to the board and what do we want to, what are our major concerns? And what are we really wanting that we think will be perfect for our community? So I guess I just wanted it to be a time where we had some dialogue, controlled dialogue, but some dialogue about what we think and how we're feeling about it. And what we would like to see and how that can happen. And how the staff can help us make it happen.
Prior to deliverables,
Yeah,
correct? I
yes.
think that's, yeah, I think that
Yes.
would be a much better use of our time to plan and work on that, so.
Should we kind of hand this back in so that we know what dates?
We
Just
can-
circle
why don't
them
we
and
just
then hand
circle?
them back and we'll get a,
Yeah. Yeah, well,
that's circled all of them.
you circled all of them?
No,
No,
find one that
This is
Okay.
one for me.
someone.
Yeah, right, right.
Okay,
A question on that.
Commissioner Pollard.
I wonder if it wouldn't be something to consider to invite the members of the board of Overlake, not necessarily with these events, but at an event similar to this, an informal event.
It depends on how, it depends, I'm doing what we're gonna do alone, I'm sure they're doing stuff alone, helps us know what we want and who we are. And maybe at a later
Yeah.
time, it would be more appropriate for that, but right now, we don't, that's part of the problem, we really don't know what it is we're really looking for, what we really want, and if we're all collectively together on it. And I just think saying what we think and how we feel and what's important to us helps us to know the direction we want to go in.
We'll hand them one out of these 5 dates, right?
Yeah?
Okay.
Okay, I'll give them a 1 and 2.
Okay, give us dates, and we'll bring back what we've
Which
got.
one's your 1 and 2?
Or if you don't
Which one
carry
is
it
the first?
Yeah, if he doesn't care, it can be just
Oh, I already
circled.
gave you one.
I gotta check this
No,
out.
that's yours.
Oh, 1 and 2?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take.
October is better, yeah, correct, that's correct. I like the October 1.
Okay. I don't know how-
Well, thank you for thinking of that.
Glad we're in agreement. Commissioner Pollard, are you still thinking?
Yeah, I've got to consider other things. I don't have my calendar with me, but I'm quite sure that the Tuesday would work for me.
Tuesday, Wednesday, are you like Tuesday, October 22nd?
Yeah, not Wednesday, Tuesday.
Is that kind of late though to be doing this? No?
It's one of the options.
Yeah, it is not true. So we'll see how, what everybody.
Is it time? 1 o'clock or 2:30?
Tuesday is 1
1 to 5.
1 to 5, yeah. So these are just half days, couple hours, rested.
This one is Tuesday is 4 hours.
That's 4 hours, this is 3,
Yeah.
that one's 4,
Then 3.
Yeah, 3. So there's some options. We can gather that. Yeah, we're turning them in. And Val will help us. Okay, thank you. Pardon?
Drum roll will come.
Okay. So we did that. New organizational chart? You do that? Yeah. Dr. McCobb is going to give us a new organizational chart.
I was gonna put the slides up.
Also in the new business. Then also in the business.
All right, so, reason for doing this is, to show the current org chart, because as we, make the changes in our executive team, that realign the org chart. So that's what I wanted to introduce to you here, and so I apologize that it's small, but we have a lot of departments. So this is as big as we can make it on the big display, but you have it, in your packets if you ever want to study it. So the The design really is to show, obviously, as Board of Commissioners, you all are always at the top of the org chart. And then the role of superintendent CEO, and then Val supporting us all. And then the departments are divided then into 3 groups. So what's so important is in your organization that every member of the organization flows up to an executive member. So that's what this accomplishes, is that it does not matter what department that you work in, that there's a path for you towards an executive member, that you can escalate any concerns, but also be represented in the C-suite. So the first column to the left is Karen's grouping, and so as Chief Operating Officer, also as Chief Nursing Officer, she has the group there. You'll see so materials falls under her. These are daily operations of the facility, so facilities. Also answers to her the dietary, nutrition, kitchen area, the rehab, social services, swing bed intake and utilization review, the pharmacy and imaging departments, and the director of nursing. Both pharmacy and director of nursing actually dually answer to, so that they fall under both Karen and I, because both of those departments have very significant clinical as well as operational components. So we lead those 2 together. And then under the director of nursing, tucked over to the left-hand side in orange, are the departments that go first to the director of nursing before they come into the executive oversight, to the emergency department, and then surge, endoscopy, wounded infusion, and then education.
So was that all under Rachel?
Those are all under the right director of nurses. That's right. And then the column that falls under me, under my chief medical officer role, then is informatics and IT, because that's such a vital, big component of all the documentation clinically. The dietitians, the clinics, infection prevention, the laboratory, medical staff services, and then all of our employee providers, all there. And then Steve, remember Steve's list is shorter because Steve is part-time. So that's how we got him to part-time, because we couldn't take all of his finance responsibilities away. So everything finance we kept with him, so his expertise, and so we were able to offload him to give him the opportunity to work part-time by relocating the groups that did answer to him before. So he still has finance department, revenue cycle, and then HR. And the HR, while it's not all finance, it speaks to the wealth of experience that Steve has working with HRs and HR departments over the years.
What about his compliance portfolio?
So the compliance isn't part of the org chart, and he continues to be the compliance officer. It's just it's part of his
Steve's
role.
still compliance.
Yeah, it's part of his role, but it doesn't have a department underneath it. That's what this is about. This is just a great opportunity to talk about the different roles, because through different conversations and strings, I hear uncertainty about the different executive roles. So just going to grab this opportunity to give you these descriptions. And so where these came from, so the CEO role, these are lifted out of the bylaws. So this isn't creating anything new. So this is how the bylaws describe what the CEO's role is. So the conduit between the board and the entire organization, responsibility for presenting and operating within the budget, responsible for the employees, for the facility, and for regulatory compliance, supervise the business affairs of the district, and executing the contracts and the agreements within the delegated discretional authority, and then leading the executive team. Other three roles here, again, just looking at how that org chart is defined. So the CFO, the CMO, and the Chief Operating Officer. And right here, we don't need to, I don't intend to consume our time reading each of those, but these come out of each of our job descriptions. So we do, each one of us have a unique job description as well. And so I underlined what I thought were the most important points to recognize. So as the CFO, all things, the fiscal services and all the functions about cash, dealing with all of the auditors as well as serving as treasurer. Doing then alongside the CMO role, which is around medical and clinical leadership and the expertise there, quality patient care across the disciplines. And I'm just going to jump right next door to the COO because COO has to do with integration of operations across the department. So we have a lot of parallel and integrated work that we do together. And then COO also around all the daily hospital operations. So as we talked about too, that every staff member needs a conduit up to the executive suite. And so that's the reason why Karen also wears this chief nursing officer hat, because that allows all of our nurses to be represented in the executive suite as well. So happy to pause and answer any questions that this committee can read or reference as you need to along the way.
I personally have a analogy that I use mostly in the ER when I worked in the ER public ER. And that's that everybody, no matter your education, no matter your job, everybody has the same value. They are all valuable. And if anybody in this chain link fence isn't doing their job, it breaks down the system for everybody. So no individual is any more important than another individual, so much as the task and that they do it well for the patient. It really is about the patients. And I think this is a really good example of how everything is integrated and how important everybody is to make a hospital successful. That's my 2 cents. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. So we now have public comment. Oh, wait, oh, sorry.
Do you
want it?
I have 3, it's a little tiny 3, but I have it.
Oh, okay. Well,
Okay.
I heard you move on to.
I started to,
Okay.
caught myself, yes. Okay, what is, foundation, we have a question about the foundation.
Yeah, I think this is an opportunity for us to discuss about reviving or, resurrecting Snoqualmie Valley Hospital Foundation. There was another name that I thought would be more appropriate once, if and when the affiliation takes place and closes. So the other name would be Snoqualmie Valley Health Foundation, because as now we're going to be a district, I think if we have that name or title, it's much more appealing if we work towards or focusing towards population health or community health, however we want to define our role outside of the hospital's settings. So either, because we have Snoqualmie Valley Hospital Foundation, which I don't believe it really went farther enough to become much more like Overlake Foundation. I don't know. And so the other name would be Snoqualmie Valley Health Foundation to augment all the other, other districts that to really become much more expansive in our outreach and community engagement in terms of delivering community in our districts. So I don't know, it's something that we can discuss about and see. And it will also help in terms of becoming much more responsible to our taxpayers in terms of, what kind of duty we as commissioners are delivering, what kind of deliverables that we will do if and when the hospital is no longer in our operation, or not, we don't do the operation, we just oversee. But something that I think it's important for us to look forward to the future. And so thought we could discuss this today and see what you think about it. The foundation will also build as the stepping stone to help us to be able to market our projects, our goals, our missions, and our objectives. The foundation and the board, so we can select people within the community, maybe a representative from each of the district. Maybe we can find somebody from Carnation who will sit on the foundation, from Falls City, from Preston, from North Bend and Snoqualmie, maybe more diverse, more equitable distribution of, and more balance in terms of serving the entire districts that we're serving. And I think we have 6 districts, right? I'm sorry. Is
The
that,
pass?
the pass is one of them.
North
too.
Bend, Snoqualmie.
Carnation.
All city.
There's
Carnation, yeah. Preston too. Yeah, Preston. So we have 6. The past Snoqualmie here, North Bend, Preston, Carnation, and Falls City. So that's our district, that's our service areas. So I thought that's where we can tap on those people, leaders that could be part of our foundation, that would make an excellent leaders of our foundation. So anyway, that's why I thought I'd like to continue this discussion and maybe put it in our next board meeting, continue, put it on the agenda for next month. But we can continue, we can talk about it. What are your thoughts, fellow
I
commissioners?
would like to see who would like to organize and who, I mean, some kind of plan on how to get people to be part
I
of
know,
this.
well, if you
So-
allow me, I'd be happy to take the lead to find those community leaders
Mhm.
and see if they are, because I know there are a few that are really interested now. And of course, this will be, to start with, it'll be a volunteer
Mhm.
role, because we can't afford to pay anyone. I know in the past, there was an executive director that was paid by the hospital. So that's something, well, you know, whoever becomes the leader of that foundation or the president, you know, has to demonstrate that they're able and willing to deliver the goods, you know. Be able to market, be able to bring funding to our foundation. And then later down the road, we can discuss whether it is an opportunity for this person to stay on and have some compensation. But for the time being, we don't need to do that.
I,
Okay.
I think, first is the money. We need to get some grants and stuff
Right.
if we want to be a foundation. And also there are probably some people in the community that would be willing to give. I know that the network and Encompass, there are a couple different organizations that have pretty large fundraising events. And even if there's a way we could find to walk alongside and contribute to some of those organizations, if our
We will
foundation.
collaborate and partner with
Yeah.
them as well.
Yeah,
But I think
that's a
it's
good
nice to
idea.
have our own independent and see what, we'd like to see our taxpayers to know, to show them that we're doing something.
Yeah.
And rather than always, you know, piggybacking on someone, that we are actually out there.
Well, and that's true because you and David and his wife and a couple of people from the hospital went to the Snoqualmie Valley Network Gala. They were there and supported it. So, too, I think it gives us an opportunity to go out to see other organizations. So we all have the same goals. We all want health in this valley, whether it's mental health, whether it's physical health, whatever, mental health, all those things are important.
What would be helpful to bring back to the next meeting
Mhm.
about this? Would you like to have some legal input on how involved the board can be in the foundation? So we can get some insight into that.
Mhm.
A status of the current foundation status, because it is still alive.
Yes, yes. I did mention briefly with General Counsel Hauser here, and yes, I think that's something that it should have been done a long time ago when we were doing our bylaws as well.
Is there a charter or any kind of founding?
It's totally separate from the hospital, yeah.
Is there anything else that you want brought back that you?
I just wanted to hear, you know, my fellow commissioners, what their thoughts are, and what you think.
Well, I think the foundation has a basis in our bylaws, as I recall, there's a
Mhm.
mission
Yes, there
statement.
is.
We updated it this last year.
Yes.
And so I'm a little confused about a Snoqualmie Valley Health Foundation Board. Now, one of the things that Evergreen does is they have a community advisory board, and they take up everything, including health, 35 members on their board. And they pick people from different parts of their area. So I see that as kind of one concept. I've always been disappointed that we don't have a Snoqualmie Valley Hospital Auxiliary. but that's maybe a separate question. But at any rate, I'm a little confused about what this organization would do, because the foundation itself was intended to raise money for the hospital district. And what I hear is kind of a different role. So I do think it bears additional discussion. And I need clarification. That's kind of why I would have preferred, if we discussed, to put it on the agenda for next time and gotten some materials, including perhaps a copy of our contract, or other foundation commission, or whatever
Well, I
the.
could
The
do some
charter.
searching and work with
So I'm
Dr.
taking
Rick.
notes of what.
Yeah,
wants
I'm sure there's
to be
a
brought
site
forth.
bylaw.
The charter.
And
Certificate of
foundations at
formation.
hospitals generally are there to receive bequests and raise money. When someone passes on, it might want to be $50,000 to the foundation, that kind of thing. And that's a very useful purpose.
Okay, we can bring it up on our, or add it to the agenda for next month.
All the things that you want brought for, to
Is
see in your
that
hands
okay?
beforehand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be lovely. That would be good.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
Just
Stop with that. Yeah.
And just to acknowledge that, Scott in the audience here was so instrumental in getting the
Right.
foundation up and going. So that's how we have a relationship with them. Thank you.
Yes, and now we have public comment. Not
No
today?
public comment.
Okay. All right, no public comment. We've already done some new business. Is there any other new business or action items that we need to attend to? Hearing none, for the good, let's see, good of the order, commissioner comment. Each commissioner shall have one comment period limited to 3 minutes. And we will start with Commissioner Polo.
I think all of our hearts hurt from the epidemic of terrorism we've seen from Gilroy, El Paso, Ohio, and today another 4 people were killed in Southern California. It's really an epidemic, and it just occurred to me that we need to be sure we're doing what we can to ensure security of the hospital. I know we do the periodic disaster exercises, and that's good, but what I'm concerned about is when I go into my bank, it says no hats, no hoodies, no backpacks. We don't have anything at entrance like that. I'm concerned about security at entrance. I know we can handle these disaster events and so on, but I would like to see more security at entrance. And I today, or yesterday, a couple of days ago, I spoke with the head of security at Overlake, and I told him I was calling just as an individual commissioner. He's going to be going off to Los Angeles all next week for a training session for officers like he is in hospitals and other organizations, that's going to be put on by the city of Los Angeles and the FBI, and to deal with these kinds of issues. And I don't know what the answer is. I'm not a security professional, but I would like to see more security at entrance so that a person can't just walk in and cause some kind of chaos, whatever it is.
So where we talk, I'd like to address
I'll
that.
just update you on some of the things. So we are signed as No Guns. So I think that
We're
should come
signed
in.
as
We are
No-
signed for
yeah,
No Guns, so
right.
outside in the periphery is No
Right.
Guns. When people come to the emergency room, they're reminded, one of the questions that they're asked on entry is, do you have any weapons on you? And we have a process in place with the Snoqualmie Police Department that should anyone have a weapon on them, that they'll be willing to voluntarily give over or not. The police department will come and take that, just for safekeeping. So the person who's willing to voluntarily say, yeah, and we say you can't have it here. The police department will come and hold that until they're done here. Obviously, they won't give it up voluntarily. The police have their own processes for that. But we also have the security guard at the front desk all the time, and as well as complete camera perimeters. So we are constantly watching. So the security guard has a camera on each of the entrances watching it. And we do active shooter training. So we have had all of our staff go through active shooter training. The Snoqualmie Police Department has put together very nice video training. We've had them come in and teach as well as give their video. And then last night, our facilities director participated in an active shooter conference that was led by the FBI. It was in fact local at the Snoqualmie Casino. So he was at that, and so we're looking forward to hearing what he learned there in addition to the things that we already know. The American Hospital Association also puts together active shooter training, as not only just the active shooter, but also the prevention measures. So how do you just keep it from becoming an issue at all? And so we've also adopted and brought that in as a reference point to look at. And so the final thing I'll say is we do have the ability to shut the facility down. So should we
What? I'm sorry.
ever, to shut the facility down or lock it down, so should we ever find ourselves in a scenario where we feel like that there's a threat external, at the push of a button, security guard can lock every external door so that
Yeah.
there's no entrance into it.
Well, I appreciate those are all very good things. But still, I feel uncomfortable. You've got a security guard sitting there some of the time. And we do have the police car. I would suggest that we put it out there where it's totally visible and all of that sort of thing, our security guard's car. But I still would like to see us focus a little more on prevention of that person that might come in and cause problems. And I don't know whether, at the high schools, I think they screen people that, don't they, at the entrance to the high school? Or don't they screen people? I'd just like to know that we're not doing anything less than what other hospitals are doing. And the head of security at Overlake, we couldn't go into a lot of detail because he doesn't know me and I don't know him exactly, but there are things we can do and things
Right.
they are doing at entrance that I think we should consider.
I can tell you that we do more than anyone else because the only entrance into our building that is free access is through the front door and the emergency room. Both of those are constantly under visual. Any other access you can only get in if you have.
Yeah, well, I'm concerned about the main entrance mainly, but you make a good point about the emergency room, but I just would like to see some additional security in a preventative sense at the main
Comment?
entrance. That's my 3 minutes.
Okay.
Commissioner Harris.
I think there are two issues that happen in this particular sad violence act in this past weekend. One, of course, is the issue of gun violence, and I think the other issue is the mental health. I think it was more appropriate for us now that we are going to be hiring a nurse practitioner, a psych, that we can focus on that to improve our screening and treating those people with depression, anxiety, and behavioral issues and mental health issues. So that is something I think we need to also focus besides all this gun violence that is now really being addressed. There are two issues that, it's unfortunate that this mental and behavioral problems been ongoing, and it seems like it's a never-ending issues that we all have to contend with. So, yeah, I'm sad about the violence that is occurring in our nation. So,
Jen, did you want to say something?
New topic?
If
Or
you want
people
to.
are, well,
Yeah,
are
3
we done
minutes.
with that
yeah, 3
topic?
minutes. That was.
You have
Oh, okay.
3 minutes, go for yours.
I just want to congratulate again Dr. Whitcop and your staff for achieving the value-based payment from Cigna. That is how the industry is trending, and it's delightful that you're in front of it and already benefiting from it. Well done.
I just had a great comment from a client that showed up and was complaining about another hospital. I wanted to find out what hospital it was first before I went any further.
Yeah, really.
And then just by chance, they mentioned Snoqualmie. And they go, what a great place that was. She eventually passed away, and they thought this was the best care they've ever received. They had many good things to say about this hospital and staff. So,
It's good to hear that, because there are a lot
and
of.
I was able to actually get permission to say that. Let's-
You know, it's nice to hear that, because there's some people, there was somebody that called me that just had all kinds of bad stuff to say, and I think it was about drugs. I think it was more related to a drug issue than anything else, but that's good to hear. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I need a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none? I adjourn this meeting.
All right.